My name is Cliff Ennico, and I do a number of things. Let's get the bad one out of the way first. I am, by profession and training, a lawyer. Everybody, the room is sealed. They just close the doors. You cannot escape. Okay? But I consider myself one of the good guys. I don't do wills. I don't do divorces. I don't do fender benders. You will never see my face plastered on the side of a Bridgeport City bus. All I do is help people start and run businesses. That is all I do. I've been a lawyer for 30 years, and for 20 of those years now, I have been doing this here in Southern Connecticut and parts of New York City metropolitan area. In that time, I have helped somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 people start businesses from scratch. Everything from one-person consulting firms to a couple of companies that are on the Inc. 500 today, and I'm very, very proud of that. I've been around, and boy, do I wish I'd taken stock when they went public. I wouldn't be doing this today. But I am not just a lawyer. I'm also a successful entrepreneur. I have 14 books in print of various kinds on small business law and management. I write for Entrepreneur Magazine. I have a nationally syndicated newspaper column that's in about 200 newspapers around the country, including some papers here in lower Fairfield County for the most part. I'm not in any of the Bridgeport area papers, unfortunately. If you really want to know more about me and what I do, I got a brand new website which even has some nice video on it at www.succeedinginyourbusiness.com, which is the name of my column. Succeedinginyourbusiness.com, and everything on there is free. I got a lot of free resources for people who are thinking about starting small business. So with that out of the way, when people are starting a business from scratch, they tend to get confused. I find that most people that I deal with, when I start dealing with a client for the first time, they're asking the right questions, but they're asking them in a very confused and jumbled order. And that, I think, just adds to the confusion and stress of starting up a successful business from scratch. If you go to your local bookstore and you go to the small business section of that bookstore, I don't care which one it is, you will see at least 100 different books on how to write a business plan for a successful small business. I mean, that's a topic that's been pretty much written to death. I can save you some money. In my opinion, you should not buy any of them. Because they're no good. I shouldn't say that. They're not wrong. It's just that they're meant for a different type of entrepreneur than what most of you here in this room are. Those books are written primarily for people who are starting technology companies, software, media, web-based applications, that kind of thing. Companies that are going to be looking at some point for outside capital, venture capital, that kind of thing, institutional investments, and who have to put together a business plan that has to look a very, very specific way because that's what investors want to see. That's what most of those books are all about. Most of those books will not be too helpful to most of you in doing basic retail businesses, basic service businesses, which is what most of the clients who come my way are looking to accomplish. However, having said that, you do need a business plan. But the business plan you need does not have to be a 100-page book with index tabs and charts and projections of cash flow and all the stuff that these books are talking about for the more technology-oriented companies. What you need as a business plan is the answer to 10 questions. And the questions themselves are pretty basic. In fact, if I went around the room and asked you, what do you think the 10 questions are, I think most of you would get most of them right. It really isn't rocket science what I'm going to be talking about here today. What is different and what I stress in my presentations is the order in which those questions are asked. When you're looking to start a small business, there's a very specific order in which these 10 questions must be asked. Most people, when they start businesses, they ask the right questions, but they get the order all balled up, which is what leads to confusion and what leads them to make bad business decisions. So what I'm really going to be teaching you tonight is the order in which you ask these 10 questions. And when you do these questions, when you tackle these questions, it's very important. Number one, you must do them one at a time. And number two, this is not the SATs. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, those of you who went to college, you took the SATs, the college boards, probably your third or fourth year of high school, and some poor teacher who took pity on you gave you a little class on how to take the test. And what was the big piece of advice they gave you? What did they tell you to do when you're taking the SATs or any other time test? What do they tell you to do if you get stuck on a question? They said, don't waste your time. Go on to the next question, circle it, get through the test, and then go back and spend more time on the questions you got stuck on. That's the worst advice anyone will ever give you for starting a small business. If you are doing these 10 questions and you get stuck on a question, the very worst thing you could do is to move on to the next question. If you get stuck on a question, you've got to stay with that question. You've got to obsess about it, analyze it, research it, network through everything you can to try to find the answer to that question until one of two things happens. Either you get the answer to your question, which enables you then to move on to the next one, or, and this happens about 50% of the time, you realize after a while that the question has no answer. The question cannot be answered at all, and that is why the business won't work. That is why the business will fail. If this happens to you, it's not because of you. It's not because you're dumb or uneducated or inexperienced or didn't know what you were doing. A lot of times it's because the business has a fatal flaw in it. And the fatal flaw is that no one can answer question 7. That's the problem. And that is why the business is not going to work for you and why it probably won't work for a lot of other people as well. So, as we go through these questions, think of these questions as ways of screening out bad ideas. You start with an idea, you subject them to the 10-question analysis, and at the end of the day, if the idea survives through all 10 questions, then it's probably one you should pursue. Okay, so with that as sort of my background, let's talk about these 10 questions. Just so you know, when I do this, I normally do this, I teach a class at Norwalk Community College 3 times a year in their evening program. It's called Starting a Small Business. We actually take 15 hours to get through these 10 questions, just so you know. What you're going to get is the 1-hour executive summary of these 10 questions. That's what you're going to get. I'm going to try to cover as much as I can in the 1 hour. It's like those guys, who are the guys, the comedians that do the complete works of Shakespeare in 1 hour? I can't remember their names, but they travel around the country. They actually get through all the complete works of Shakespeare in 1 hour. That's what we're going to be doing in the next 60 minutes. So, without any further ado, let's go through the 10 questions. Okay. Question number 1, which we will put on the board as soon as we get a pen. There we go. Question 1, who are my customers? Okay, now some of you are looking at me kind of weird. Now I can see what's going on in your mind. You're saying, well, all right, hold on a second. I get what Cliff's saying here. I mean, yes, you got to know your customers. The customer's king. Yeah, this is important. I get it, but wait a minute. You're saying this is the very first thing you think about when you're starting any kind of a business. I mean, isn't there a question, Cliff, that comes before this, which is, what is the product or service? I mean, don't you kind of have to know what the product or service is before you know who the customers are? The answer to that, believe it or not, is no. You do not need to have a specific product or service in mind to know who your customers are going to be. I know that sounds a little radical, but let me see if I can explain it. You're going to find out when you're in business for yourself that not everybody buys from you. Your market is not the universe. There are some people in this world who will buy anything at all from you because they know you, they like you, they get you. I mean, these are the people that have always gravitated toward you since you were a kid. These are the people you hung out with in grade school. These are the people you dated in high school and college, or possibly married. These are the people you have always been attracted to and that have been and that are simultaneously attracted to you in return. That we call those natural customers. At the other end of the spectrum, there are certain people who will never buy a thing from you in a million years, no matter, even if you had a cure for cancer and they were dying of cancer, they would still not buy because they just don't buy from you. And everybody else, all your other customers fall somewhere, in between these two radical extremes. I'll give you an example from my own law practice. I do a lot of work with dentists. I'm not a healthcare lawyer. I help them with, I do their business type stuff. So when a dentist wants to hire like a young colleague fresh out of dental school, I do the employment agreement. When an older dentist tries to sell to a younger dentist and sell the practice, he's retiring, I do the purchase and sale documents, and I'm fairly well known for this. Right now I'm working with about 42 dentists here in the state of Connecticut. If any of you guys ever need a root canal anywhere in the state, give me a call. I'll probably get you the best deal, anywhere you want to know. Dentists love me. I get dental conventions, they all laugh at my jokes. I get the whole audience as clients without any effort whatsoever. Dentists buy Cliff Ennico as an attorney. But here's an amazing thing. Right now in my practice, and this is fairly typical, I am not currently working with any other types of physicians. I don't represent a single podiatrist, a single optometrist, a single orthopedic surgeon or internist. I don't do it, and it's not for want of trying. I speak at medical conventions. I tell the same jokes I tell the dentist. They all laugh. I get business cards. I never hear from them ever again. It's amazing. And let me tell you something. There's not much of a learning curve here. If an older podiatrist is retiring and selling his practice to a younger podiatrist, all I got to do is take my dental documents, take the DDS out, put a DPM in there, and boom, I'm done. It's exactly the same paperwork. It's exactly the same transaction. It's not like it's a different area of the law or anything like that. It's that for some reason, dentists buy Cliff Ennico and doctors don't. Now that's interesting. And you might ask yourself, gee, why? Answer, I haven't a clue. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not just saying that to be cute or funny. I really don't know why it is that dentists buy me and the exact same kind of services other doctors. This is one of the mysteries of the marketplace, and you'll find that it's true in your case too. Even though you have 80 good reasons why people should buy things from you, if they're not otherwise motivated, they're not going to buy from you. And you got to find out, before you do anything in terms of building a business, it's a good idea to sit down and ask yourself, who are my natural customers? Who are the people who more likely than not will buy anything that I have to offer, whether it's antiques, insurance, or legal services? Whatever it is you're looking to sell. Who are the people in my life that have always gotten me, that I always gravitate toward, who gravitate toward me? It can be something as silly as the fact that you always dated people that are taller than you. Sometimes these get very silly. And you're going to find, by the way, and this, not to digress, it's the silly little things in life that have made you who you are. Little things that happened to you when you were a teenager or a kid have shaped your character in ways that you probably have forgotten. And it's good to get in touch with those things before you start building a business, because those are the things that will help you identify who these people are that are more likely than not to buy anything at all that you have from you. So let's say, here's an exercise. So Cliff, I get this all sounds great, but how do you do it? Well, here's my little exercise. When you go home tonight, if this were my Norwalk college class, I'd ask you to do this as a homework assignment. I want you to go home, take the same pad that's in front of you right now, make yourself a strong pot of coffee, or my preference, of VSOP brandy. You'll need it. And I want you to do this. I want you to do the following. I want you to make a list of 10 groups of people that you feel you know so well, you can crawl inside their head and look at the world the way they do. Sounds easy, doesn't it? Make a list of 10 groups of people that you know so well. You have hung out with these people so much in your life that you can actually crawl inside their head and look at the world through their eyes. Now, I'm not asking you to make a list of people that you strongly identify with or that you like. That's actually not a good thing in business, because when you would strongly identify with a certain group of people, you tend to see only the positive side of them. You tend to romanticize them or stereotype them a little bit. You don't see when you to people, you're going to learn that only real people buy things. Stereotypes don't buy anything. Idealized human beings do not buy anything. Only real human beings with false and good things, both in equal measure, buy things in this world. And when you're looking at potential markets, you got to see these people with the way they really are. What really motivates them to buy things? Not what they say they're going to buy, not what you think they're going to buy. What really these people. You have to know lots and lots about them. And the only way that you can really know lots about certain types of people is to spend lots of time with them. So that's what I'm asking you to do. So let's say we're me. If I were doing this 10-point exercise, who would be on my list? Well, lawyers. Okay, U.S. and Canadian lawyers, not German or Italian lawyers. I haven't done a lot of international work in my career, so I really can't tell you what an Italian lawyer is all about. U.S. and Canadian lawyers, yes, I've been a lawyer for 30 years of my life. For 15 of those years, I actually ran a company selling books and information products to the legal community. I still do it today. I have met literally hundreds of thousands of lawyers in the U.S. and Canada, more than all of you together will ever meet in your entire lifetime. I feel I can definitely know what U.S. and Canadian lawyers are all about. I know what makes those people tick. Book publishers. I ran a publishing company for 15 years of my life. I know what it's like to lie awake at nights worrying whether or not I picked the right shrink wrap for my latest paperback book. You may not realize this, but there's 4 different kinds of shrink wrap. And if you put the wrong one on, the book spine, if it's too tight, the book spine kind of does a backwards S. Have you ever seen a book like that at the bookstore? You never buy that book. It looks ugly. The information is perfectly good, but it just looks weird, when it's doing that snake thing. So seriously, publishers, if you've never published a book, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But publishers obsess about those kinds of details. But don't just limit this to business stuff. Get a little personal here. So, for example, middle-aged men. I'm 55 years old. I'll volunteer that to you. It means I think I qualify. People who cannot wear contact lenses. Because of a childhood accident that I won't bore you with, I have tiny little microscopic particles of metal in both my eyes. Now they don't affect my vision at all, but it means I can't wear contacts. They're too scratchy. They irritate my eyes too much. Now you say to yourself, big fat hairy deal. Who cares whether this guy can wear contacts or not? Seriously, it affects your life. So, for example, last year I had a knee injury. I had to have some surgery on my knee, and I had to go in for an MRI. Okay, what does the M in MRI stand for? What do magnets do when they get too close to little microscopic particles of metal in both your... By the way, they say in public speaking classes you should always paint a vivid portrait for your audience. Does this do it for you? Okay. Seriously, if you ever go for an MRI, seriously, they're going to have a big sign outside the door that says, if you have any metal parts in your body, please tell the technician, or because you're not going to have them very long otherwise. It doesn't say that, of course. And seriously, and of course I'm a lawyer walking in right off the bat. That's one strike against me right off the bat for the MRI, right? But then I tell them I got these things in my eyes. Even though it was my knee that was affected. I was only in the machine from here down, but I had this lead pillow on my face because the technician was terrified. Having a lawyer walking in with metal body parts is like a serial killer walking into an MRI office. It doesn't get much worse than that for an MRI technician to say that guy needed liquor at the end of the day. I can almost guarantee you that. Seriously, people have issues. That's my point. It's these stupid little things that you don't even think about, but you actually have issues. I do a lot of TV work. I can't wear my glasses on a TV set. We don't like to see people with glasses on TV because it looks geeky. So that means I can't read a teleprompter. I have to memorize everything I'm going to say on television because I can't see them. Seriously, people who can't wear contact lenses have issues. If you're not in that club, you have no idea what they are, but they do have issues. That's my point. But now here's your biggest kick. Sometimes your best customers, your best natural customers, are people that don't look anything at all like you. They are a group that you yourself will never be a member of. So here's my example. If I were doing this exercise, if I were listing 10 groups of people that I know a lot about, I would put down, without any hesitation or irony whatsoever, women in their 70s. Women aged 70 to 80. Now, some of you are looking at me and you're saying, this is more about this guy than I want to know. Is it time to go to the bathroom? No, but seriously, Cliff, I'm sorry, I'm not buying this, Cliff. You're a guy, you're never going to be a woman, you're not, forgive me, this is too much of a stretch. I'm sorry. How can you say with a straight face that women in this, the answer, because of something you would never know in a million years unless I told you, which of course I will. Which is that when I was a boy, in grade school, like 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, I was a latchkey kid. My mom took a job with a PR firm in Manhattan, actually. She was secretary for a PR firm that's still in existence. You ever see the TV series Mad Men? Right? She lived that life. She was actually a secretary for one of the big PR firms of that era, the early 1960s. And we lived in Yonkers, New York, in suburbs of Westchester, and she took the train into New York. And basically there was nobody to meet me at the school bus when I got off from school. Well, of course, she was a good mom, of course, and she wasn't about to let a 2nd grade kid run around the house alone. So she called in reinforcements in the form of 2 women who were then in their 70s. They've long since passed on. And I can even tell you who they are. My maternal grandmother, her mother, whose real name was Matilda Bertha, we'll leave last names out of this, and her sister, with whom she lived, my maiden great aunt, Edna Frederica. Do you have a picture of these 2 little old ladies in your mind? Arsenic and old lace, right? That's exactly what they look like. You're exactly right. And they lived in Yonkers, they took the bus over, and they basically babysat me until Mom got home from work. Well, this got a little boring for them from time to time, because I was kind of a boring kid. So they started inviting over, with my mom's permission, they started inviting over some of their friends from the neighborhood, who were all women in their 70s, and it got a little out of hand. At its peak, we had the biggest illegal casino in the history of Westchester County, New York, going on in our house every day. Now, seriously, I would come home from school, I'd open the door, there was this big cloud of smoke over the dining room table, because they all smoke like chimneys, and these, literally 20 women in their 70s, all sitting around playing card games. Cliff, is that you? Okay, yeah, snacks in the refrigerator, do your homework. Okay, Irma, now ante up, you're behind. You know, little ladies with green eye shades, this is what I came home to. For like, and you laugh, it's a funny story, right? It's a cute story, but think about it. 5 hours every day, 5 days a week. Do the math here. For about 4 or 5 years of my life, until I was old enough to, go out to take care of myself. I was in high school and I didn't need these people anymore. I was exposed, ladies and gentlemen, to probably the best focus group of women in their 70s, at least of that generation, ever assembled. Because while these women were playing their card games, what were they doing? About what it's like to be a woman in your 70s. That's all they were talking about. And there's this little kid in short pants playing with his Tonka trunks, being besieged with wave after wave of this information about women in their 70s. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't give a rat's patootie about women in their 70s at the ripe old age of 8 years old. I didn't want this information. I didn't ask for this information. I truly did not care what women in their 70s care about. But just by sheer osmosis, for hundreds and hundreds of hours, ladies, I can tell you things about women in their 70s that'll make your hair stand on that. I truly, honestly can tell you that I can do that, okay? Again, it's these little stupid things that make you who you are. Really stupid little things like that, okay? So seriously, before you even think about doing a business, or thinking about specific products or services, do a little homework about who am I in the business of serving. Bob Dylan has that song, You Gotta Serve Somebody. Remember that song? You have to serve somebody. Every business, when you get right down to it, is a service business. Who are you? Who do you want to serve? Who do you care enough about? Who do you know enough about that you want to spend the rest of your life, the rest of your career serving people? I made up my mind very early on that I want to serve lawyers, young lawyers who don't know how to manage their careers and who don't know what the heck they're doing. I want to serve entrepreneurs. I want to serve people that are starting businesses and who really don't know what they're doing. That was a decision I made very early on. And it's a good decision for you to make too. This is where you begin the process. Now, why is it so important that we know so much about customers? Why do we put this at the top? Because now we get to question 2. And question 2 is, now I've got this great list of 35 groups of people that I know a lot about. Why will these people buy anything at all from me? Keep in mind, we haven't even discussed a single product or service yet, specific product or service. Why will these people buy anything at all from me in the world? Antiques, guns, whatever, okay? Now, that's not what I wrote up on the board. I wrote up these 2 blank spaces with S's at the end. Now, why did I do that? Because of something it has taken me 25 years to learn. And I'm going to share this with you. This is something that is one of the deepest, darkest secrets of running a business. It is something you will not see in any book, in any article, in any CD or DVD information product, unless it's one that I myself have written. It's something that I've written about in some of my books, but you won't see it anywhere else. It's one of the dirtiest secrets in the world. It's called a build-up, by the way. This is very practical for when you're doing. Cliff, would you just please spit this thing out? Okay. There are 2 reasons, and only 2, why anyone in this world buys anything. There's only 2 reasons in this world why you have ever bought anything. There's only 2 reasons in this world why I have ever bought anything. Because as a consumer, I'm no smarter than anybody in this room. I don't claim to be. And if you've read a little bit about business, you think you know what these 2 things are. In fact, a lot of very sophisticated business people think they know what these 2 things are, but you would be wrong. As to one of them, you would be deadly wrong. The 2 things, if you read any book on marketing, a small business, or anything else, they say, the 2 reasons why people buy anything are needs and wants. That's what you will read about in the books. It's wrong. Cliff Ennico says it is wrong, especially the needs part. People, one of the dirtiest little secrets in the world of business is that people seldom, if ever, buy things because they need them. One of the dumbest things you can do when starting a business is to base your business plan on what people need or what you think they need, because it seldom, if ever, works. I could give you the reasons for that, but in 1 hour I don't really have a whole lot of time. Let me tell you what the real two motivators are, because this is the dirty little secret about this. People seldom, you can think of 50 good, logical reasons why people should buy your stuff. All good reasons, logical, makes a lot of sense. Everybody goes up and down like this, and they nod their head and they do stuff like that. But unless they are otherwise motivated to buy, they will not buy. Even though you've persuaded them, even though they know they need it, even though they buy into it. Yes, I know I need this, but I'm still not buying it. Here, I'll give you a very simple example. Up until a few years ago, I did not have a will. Does that kind of surprise you? A little bit. Let me ask you, why didn't I have a will? Is it because I didn't know I needed one? I'm a lawyer, for crying out loud. If anybody knows he needs a will, it's me, right? How many people, just out of curiosity, survey of the room, how many people here do not have a will? I don't do wills, by the way. I'm not trying to handle you here. Okay, but 2 or 3. It's very, very typical. And by the way, I don't blame you at all. There's a lot of good reasons why people don't have wills. I'll tell you, it gets even worse. Because I myself do not do wills in my law practice. When one of my clients needs a will, what do? I refer it. I refer them to a local attorney who does wills, and I got 4 or 5 attorneys here in Fairfield County who are very grateful for all this business that I send them. And for years they've been telling me, hey Cliff, when it comes time to do your will, call me, I'll do it for nothing, as a professional courtesy, as a way of saying thank you for all this wonderful business. So here's a situation, ladies and gentlemen, in which I, a relatively intelligent human being, not only know I need something, I've got people offering to do it for me for nothing, and I'm still saying no, I'm still resisting it. Is that dumb? Is that stupid? Let me tell you something. That's your market. We all know the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, most of us were not raised on farms. I don't know much about horses, but I'll tell you, it's really true about customers. You have to find out what really motivates people. Logic does not work here. The rational brain does not work. In order to get sales out of customers, you got to hit them a little further down in the anatomy. Okay? Now, so what does? So I told you what does. So forget needs and wants. Here's what does work. Number 1, passions. If you've got a product or service that turns people on, that gets them excited in some way, that gets the saliva flowing in their mouths, they will buy from you, even in bad economies. Give me examples. Entire industries that are based on people's passions.
Music.
Yeah, music. I couldn't agree with you more. iPods, any kind of music. Anybody else? Sports, absolutely, right? Who needs sports? Who needs baseball or football or basketball, right? But we're passionate about that, at least some people are anyway. By the way, if you're having trouble thinking of passions, okay, this may sound stupid, think of the 7 deadly sins. No, seriously, first of all, I don't believe these are sins. I don't believe these are bad things. The 7 deadly sins are common emotions that most people on planet Earth have in one varying degree or another. And if you don't believe me, let me walk you through the 7. Number 1, pride. Anything that makes me feel good about myself as a professional or a human being, self-help, that kind of stuff. The whole self-help industry is based on people's pride. That's number 1. Number 2, lust. No explanation necessary. Sex sells. We all know that. Greed. We've got this hot new mutual fund that'll generate 12% per annum no matter what the economy is doing. Isn't that what Bernie Madoff did, right? Isn't that exactly how he sold all those people? Right? I got this hot new mutual fund. Greed works. I'll make you rich in 10 days. Start a small business, be rich in no time at all. Come step right up, folks. All right, number 4, envy. I've got something you don't have. If you're driving a Lamborghini to and from work each day, ladies and gentlemen, there's something more than a need for basic transportation that's going on here. Okay? Let's just say that. Anger. Negative political ads. We don't know much about our candidate, but the other candidate is such a blithering idiot. He's going to destroy this country so much. Please, when you're sitting in the voting booth, please do not think about our candidate at all. Think about how much you hate the other guy, and you'll vote for our candidate by default. By the way, there are reams of political behavioral data studies that support what I've just said here. When you're in a voting booth, you tend to vote against more than you do vote for things. So my job as a political operative is not so much to get you to love my guy, but to hate the other one. Look, I hate those ads as much as anybody else does, but there's reams of statistics that say that they work, which is why people still do them. Sloth, which is laziness. Think convenience. Anything that makes my life easier, that means I don't have to get out, I can make myself coffee without having to get up out of bed in the morning. Anything that makes my life easier and enables me not to use my muscles or any of my body parts is something I probably will pay a lot of money for. And then last and not least, gluttony, which is eating and drinking too much. Can't help you too much there. I don't know much about that one. Okay. Why are you laughing? Okay, anyway. People always laugh when I say that. I've never figured out why. Anyway, it's a good place to start with thinking about people's passion, but that's not the only thing that motivates people to buy. The other great motivator, fear. Fears and anxieties. Show me people with disposable income with lots of anxieties, and I'll show you market for lots and lots of stuff. Give me examples. Entire industries that are based on people's anxieties or fears. Insurance. Yeah, you better believe it. Anybody else? Home security systems, burglar alarms. That's right. Hey, how about me? How about lawyers? Right? I'm a little bit. No, seriously, I'm kind of in the fear business, right? Seriously, if you don't believe that, when was the last time you called your attorney when you were having a nice day? Think about this. You don't do that. You know, when that phone rings and I pick it up, the first thing I hear, Cliff, thank God you picked up. Oh, crap, I was going to go out to lunch. All right, tell me about it. Tell me your story. What's going on? How bad is it? How much of your body has the wolf eaten? And by the way, it's exactly 7:30. Seriously, this is the way it all is. This is the way it is. I'm not saying you should love attorneys, but you got to feel for people who are in an environment where everything's a crisis, everything's a problem that happens. You know, so, but my doctor says the same thing. There are two people you never call when you're having a nice day: your attorney and your orthopedist. Think about that. It's really true. You know, those are the two people you never call when you're having a nice day. These are the true reasons. And by the way, aren't these very intimate questions? These are very personal questions, aren't they? That's why you have to know a lot about people. If you really don't know what people's fears and passions are, I humbly submit to you that you really don't know them at all. You don't really know what makes those people tick. If you really think you know a group of people, you really know what makes them tick, what motivates them to buy, ask them, what keeps them awake at nights, what turns them on? If you cannot answer those questions, you probably do not know those people as well as you think you do, and you probably should not be selling to them. Okay? So, those are questions 1 and 2. Okay. Now, up to this point, we have not even spoken about a specific product or service. We've just been talking about people and their different kinds of people and their fears and passions. Why do we do this? Because this is where successful businesses come from. They do not come from your brain. They do not come from your ideas. Where do successful businesses come from? They come from your observation of the people around you and their fears and passions. And specifically, fears and passions that are not being satisfied in the current marketplace. You're looking for holes. You're looking for areas where certain people's fears and passions are not being addressed by other businesses. Those are the entrepreneurial opportunities that lead to successful businesses and can possibly make you rich. That's how it's done. That's why we spend so much time on this. Question number 3. Now it's time, though, to start picking products and services, and here's how we do it. Here's question 3. What products and services can I come up with? What products and services can I come up with that will have a direct and immediate appeal? That's what those words say. I wrote it really in a hurry. What products and services can I develop, can I dream up that will have a direct and immediate appeal to the fears and passions of my target customers, the people I'm going after? What products and services can I dream up that will have a direct and immediate appeal? You do not want your customers thinking too hard about why they need your products and services. You want the appeal to be direct and immediate. The minute they see it, it should hit them between the eyes. Oh God, I need that. Now, keep in mind, listen to what I just said. When we see something in a store that we really want, the words that come out of our mouth are, oh, I need that. But it's not really need that's going on. What's happened here is that my product or service has made a direct and immediate appeal to a fear or a passion that you are feeling, and you're reaching for your wallet or your credit cards right now. That's what's going on here. And by the way, there's data to support this. I do a lot of talking at sales organizations around the country, and sales managers tell me this is true. The average person takes only 15 seconds to make up their mind whether or not they're going to buy something. The average person takes 10 to 15 seconds to make up their mind. And I've had salespeople tell me, if I'm in a sales meeting, if I'm in a sales pitch, and I can see within 15 seconds I haven't reached these people, I stop, I shut up, and I go on to the next prospect. Because the more time people need to think about whether or not they're going to buy something, they tend to talk themselves out of it. The more time you have to think about a purchasing decision, you tend to talk yourself out of things. You don't talk yourself into things. That's just human nature. That's how it is. So if I'm trying to sell you something and I don't hit you within 10 or 15 seconds, I'm probably wasting my breath after that. And by the way, this works in job interviews too. If you're interviewing for a job, if you're between jobs or whatever right now, don't get me wrong. When you're in a job, I'm not saying it takes a person 15 seconds to decide if you're a good fit for a job. I am not saying that. It takes a lot longer than that. But it only takes 10 to 15 seconds for a person to decide whether or not they like you. Right? When you meet somebody for the first time, how long does it take you to make up your mind whether you like this person or not? It only takes a few seconds, doesn't it? Right? That's it. And we all know that when you're interviewing for a job, if the interviewer does not like you, it doesn't matter how perfect your credentials are or what a great fit you are for that job, you're out of there. Okay, so keep this in mind. It works even in job interviews as well. When you're selling anything to anybody, you only have 10 or 15 seconds to make an impression on that person. It's that simple. And it's the same when selling products and services. Your products and services, whatever they are, should sell themselves. People shouldn't have to ask, why do I need these things? The appeal should be obvious and immediate, and that's what you're going for here. Those are the products and services you want to focus on. The longer it takes you to explain, the more time it takes you to explain what it is you're selling, the less likely you are to generate lots of sales and lots of revenue. Okay? Question number 4, the last of our marketing questions. How do I reach my customers? God bless you. How do I get my message across to people? Okay? Now this question, in a way, dovetails all the way back to question number 1. If you truly know your customers well enough, you not only know why they buy and what they'll buy, you also know how do they process information. Are they readers? Are they TV people? Are they people that you have to speak to in person to sell? If you really truly know your customers well enough, you'll know how to get your message across. Let me give you 2 silly examples. Lawyers. How many people here have had experience selling to lawyers? Okay, I'll give you the key to selling lawyers. Lawyers are creatures of the written word. We don't like long-winded sales pitches. We want things we can take away and read and study. We're readers. We are creatures of the book and the written word. That's what lawyers are. So if I were giving a seminar for a bunch of lawyers, I would never get away just giving out these 2 skimpy handouts. I would have to give you like a book like this. A 500-page book with all kinds of copies of statutes and regulations and articles and all this kind of stuff, because that's what lawyers want. When I go to a seminar in New York, which I have to do a couple of times a year to keep my license down there, I don't really feel the seminar is a good one unless I get a hernia walking back to Grand Central Station with the handouts. I mean, really, seriously, talk to lawyers and you'll see. I'm speaking truth here. Okay, lawyers like that. Whenever you're talking to lawyers, like when I used to have my publishing company, whenever we came out with a new book, I would always send people a 6-page glossy brochure with the photo of the author's biography, the table of contents, a sample chapter, a list of all the forms, because lawyers want that kind of detail before they'll buy a new law book. All right? Lawyers are detail people, and you got to hit them with detail if you're going to try to sell them. Now that's lawyers. Now let's say we're selling instead to teenagers. If you're trying to sell something to a teenager, you're going to get him a 6-page glossy brochure? Hell no, he'll smoke it. That's what they'll do. All right? That doesn't work. How do you sell to teenagers? What works? Let me ask the question a different way. Who do teenagers listen to? Who do teenagers? They listen to their peers, other teenagers. So what you got to do is you got to get some buzz going. Teenagers aren't going to buy from a guy like me. Let's be very frank about this. Okay? No teenager in the world is going to buy from somebody who looks like this. Right? So what I got to do is I got to go on secondlife.com and I got to create an avatar that looks like Zac Efron. And he's going to go around saying, hey, there's this new metal band, man. It's called, Renegade Lawyers, man. They're really great. They're really cool. That's what I got to do. I got to get, buzz going in the teen community because that's what's going to get me sales from that kind of a market. You guys get it. Okay. By the way, always spoken, the first 4 questions deal with marketing, which is the most important thing, by the way. That's why we put these 4 questions first. If you have a business and you have no customers, we call that a hobby. That's what we call that. A business without customers is a hobby. Now, the IRS has a whole big set of definitions about what's a hobby, what's a business. It really boils down to, do you have customers or not? A business without customers, if you do not have customers, do not spend a minute worrying about whether you should be a corporation or an LLC. It doesn't matter. You have no money to pay anyway for legal fees. So it doesn't really matter. No one's going to sue you if no one's buying from you. Let me give you some free legal advice there. If you're worried about getting sued and losing your house, right? If you don't have any customers, no one's going to sue you anyway, so who cares? You don't have to be a corporation or an LLC. That's why we put the emphasis on getting customers. That's questions 1 through 4. But now we don't see there. Got to move on. Now we got to talk about competitors. Okay? I've done all this stuff. I got a zillion customers. I got a product that sells, okay? Okay, I know the customers are going to be there. I'm not worried about people buying. I know exactly who they are, what their fears and passions are. I know exactly how I'm going to target that. I'm not worried about customers. But there's somebody else out there who's making a ton of money doing this already. I got some tough competition. I don't know if I can beat that competition or not. And that's what questions 5 and 6 are all about. Question 5, who are my competitors? Who are they? Well, believe it or not, this is a tough question. A lot of sad people out there thinking that they don't have any competitors at all. And that's not true. You always have competitors. Whatever business you're doing, you always have competition of one kind or another. But there are 4 different kinds of competitors. And some of them aren't so obvious. Some of them kind of hide. They're a little sneaky. Some of them are easy to spot, some of them are hard to spot, but you've always got competitors. And you got 4 kinds of competitors. I like to use this we call this a 2x2 matrix. You can just call it a box of 4 squares if you like. That's perfectly fine. Okay? Here are your 4 types of competitors. Okay? First of all, your competition can be either direct or indirect. Okay? A direct competitor is somebody who's doing exactly the same thing that you are for the same people. Okay? By the way, this is a trick question. True or false? Your competitors are always the people that are doing the same things you're doing. False, that's right. If they're doing them for other people, they're not your competitors at all, even though they're doing exactly the same stuff. So if I have a book on how to interview for a legal job, and one of you guys writes a book about how to interview for a medical job, even though you follow my table of contents and my content, almost to the letter, of course you got to watch out for copyright there, we are not competitors in any way, even though we've got virtually identical products, because we're targeting different markets. It's your markets that determine who your competitors are, not your products or services. Okay? A direct competitor is somebody who's targeting the same markets that you're going after, and they're using the same type of product or service. So if I have a pizza parlor on Black Rock Turnpike here in Fairfield, Route 58, and you've got a pizza parlor right across the street, we are direct competitors. We're all going after the same people, and pizza is our product. That's what we're doing. But a competitor can also be indirect as well. An indirect competitor is somebody who's trying to reach the same people that you're trying to reach, the same customers, using a different type of product or service to address the same fears and passions. So if I've got a pizza parlor on Black Rock Turnpike, and you've got a Chinese takeout place across the street from me, even though we are not doing the same menu, where we are not direct competitors, we could very well be indirect competitors. Because if someone's hungry for a quick lunch, they can get a slice of pizza or they can get an egg roll. They have that choice. So even though our menus look nothing like each other, we could very well be competitors, indirect competitors though, because our products are different. But we're still going after the same customers, and we're trying to deal with the same fears and passions that they have. The hunger for a quick lunch, the passion for a quick bite to eat that has a lot of fat and salt and trans fats and all that stuff that's going to give you cancer and make you die. But that's okay. Yeah, hey, there's a lot of money doing that. Remember, pride, lust, greed. Think about that. Okay, but that's not the end of the game. Competitors can also be actual or potential. Actual or potential. That's what the A and the P stand for on my little chart. An actual competitor is somebody who is in the marketplace already. They're already in the marketplace doing whatever it is you're doing. So for example, if I were to open up a pizza parlor on Black Rock Turnpike in Fairfield right now, the 17 pizza parlors that are already there on Black Rock Turnpike are my actual competitors. They're already in business, they're here, they're selling pizza, okay? But you can't just look at those people. You also have to look at potential competitors as well. A potential competitor is somebody who's not in the marketplace today, but who could easily get into the marketplace if they tried, and here's the key, could wipe you out if they did, okay? So if I have a pizza parlor in Black Rock Turnpike in Fairfield, and I hear that one of you is thinking about opening up another mom and pop pizza parlor, I'm not too worried about that, because you got the same issues that I had starting up. I've been in town longer, I've been selling pizza longer, I've already gotten all the Valpak things that go out to people. You're going to have a tough time getting in there, so I'm not really worried about you too much. Bring it on. That's going to be my attitude. You're a little guy like me. Let's go. Let's duke it out. Mano a mano here. I'll call you out. All right. But Let's say that I have a pizza parlor on Black Rock Turnpike and I hear that Olive Garden is thinking of moving in across the street, or Bertucci's, or one of those pizzas, John's Brick Oven. Right? Now I'm a little bit more worried about that. Why? Because they're big restaurants. They have 100 or more seats. They have a full liquor license. They're serving a lot of different kind of stuff, which I can't offer because I've only got 1,200 square feet in my pizza parlor, which barely fits is big enough for the brick oven. That's a more serious competitor, and I'm going to be a lot more worried about that. If I'm looking to locate a pizza parlor, I kind of want to know where's Bertucci's going to go. I want to stay as far away from those guys as I possibly can, or Olive Garden, or one of those. I always use food examples, by the way. If people leave here starving, I tend to do this to people, I hate to say it. It's one of the things I'm known for, but that's all right. So, now let's put some names in these boxes. Okay, I said there were 4 kinds of competitors. Here they are. Direct competitors, people that are doing exactly the same thing you're doing, that are actually in the marketplace right now. We call these people the enemy. And what do you do with enemies? You vanquish them, you destroy them, you wipe them, their miserable butts off the face of the planet. That is part of them. This is part of the world of business. Okay? In a very competitive market, some of your success is going to have to come at the expense of their failure, and you have to expect that. One of your missions in business is to try to drive your competition out of business as much as you possibly can. You should not be ashamed of doing it, especially the people that live in this box. Okay? The indirect competitor who is actually in the marketplace today, think pizza parlor versus Chinese takeout place, okay? We call those substitutes. Because people can substitute one or the other. Butter versus margarine. Pizza slice versus egg roll. That's what they think. People have choices and they can substitute. If people are selling products that are normally substituted one for the other, those are considered indirect, actual competitors. Okay? A potential competitor who, if they ever got into your marketplace, into your face, would be a direct competitor. I just want to put the word big box in here to emphasize the fact that we're really worried here about people that are much bigger than you getting in your face. You're not really so much worried about little people getting in your face, but you should worry about big people. So if you're starting up a software product or something like that, one question you have to ask yourself is Microsoft or Apple going to be interested in this at some point? Because if they do, Lord knows I can't compete with those people. They're too big. If I'm thinking of buying a family-owned hardware store in Canterbury, Connecticut, the quiet corner, how close is the nearest Lowe's or Home Depot, and when are those guys, how long is it going to be before those guys open up in my face and wipe me off the face of the planet? That's my point. You're not worried about anybody getting into your marketplace. You're worried about people specifically who could wipe you out if they ever did. And how likely is that? Here's a question for you. Are there any franchises out there doing what I'm doing? And if so, how long is it going to be before one of those franchises get in my face? Some local out-of-work corporate executive buys the local. If I have a local bagel shop, for example, what's the likelihood that some out-of-work corporate executive is going to buy the local rights for the Einstein Brothers bagel franchise? Which, if you ever know what I'm talking about here, there's one in Fairfield. I don't know much about up here, but I know there's a couple of them here in Connecticut. Actually, quite good. If I was a local bagel shop, I think I'd be worried about that. To be honest with you. So when you think about franchises, don't just think of them as you signing on for a franchise. Think about them too as potential competitors, because they may well be. Now, this last box over here, the indirect competitors of the future. Now, is this getting a little too philosophical, or are we starting to get now? We're kind of now getting outside the interior planets, aren't we? Now we're going through the asteroid belt, and we're sort of hovering around the rings of Uranus somewhere, right? It's a planet. Seriously. But the answer is no. These may be your most compelling competitors of all. These are the people who are doing things out there somewhere that are going to make your products and services obsolete. Somewhere out there, there's somebody out there inventing some kind of technology that's going to change the whole paradigm of what it is you're doing, and people won't need your stuff anymore because they now have this. And if you don't believe that, I can speak from experience. I sold my publishing company in 2002 because I realized that 10 years from now, people aren't going to be buying books on what I was writing about. People are going to be using the internet and web-based solutions. I realized that I couldn't compete with that, so I sold my company before that competition even exists. In fact, I sold it to a company that specifically was looking to develop web-based products in that area, and I signed on, as part of the deal, I signed on with them as a consultant. So I am actually helping them today put people like me out of business. Is that weird? Is that really weird? But this is sometimes what you got to do, right? If you were a small town bookseller and you found out that Borders or Barnes & Noble was going to move into your town, what would you do? Would you try to fight, or would you call them up in the middle of the night and say, "Psst, hey, I hear you're opening up in town. Hire me as your manager. I've been running a bookstore here for 30 years. I know everybody in town. You'll do a lot better with me on board than you will be fighting me." That can be the smartest thing you ever do. If you can't beat them, join them. Maybe that's the smartest thing you can do in business sometimes, okay? So this is how you figure out, when people say they don't have competition, okay, which they sometimes do, what they're really saying, I feel sorry for them. They're not lying, and they're not lazy. What they're saying is, I've looked in this box here, and I don't see anybody. And that could be true. There are some businesses where you don't have a whole lot of enemies. But I guarantee you've got somebody in one of these other three boxes, and you better look for them before they surprise you. Because these people are sometimes hard to spot, especially these people over here. You really got to use your imagination to find those people sometimes, but you got to look for them. Being a little neurotic, by the way, is a good thing in business. Neurotic people tend to do very well as entrepreneurs, I have to tell you, because they miss nothing. Okay. Question 6. Okay. I know who my competitors are. What is my competitive advantage? You can't just stop and say, okay, I got a gazillion competitors. What makes you better, faster, cheaper, sexier, more convenient? What is the biggest reason why people are going to buy from you? Okay? And here's the dirty little secret. Sometimes your competitive advantage has nothing to do with your product or service. The competitive advantage you don't need to have a better product or service. Your product can be the same old thing that everybody else is doing, but because you're doing something else that's a little bit different, you'll conquer the marketplace. Classic example, distribution. There are a gazillion, at least 3 or 4 years ago, there were a gazillion pizza parlors in our area. I can't mention names because this is being videotaped, but some of you may know that there is a pizza parlor that has developed in the last couple of years whose marketing message, and I've had their pizza, I will tell you perfectly honestly, it's no better, no worse than a lot of other pizza I've had in my life, and believe me, I am a connoisseur of pizza, so I can tell you that. It's not that they got super pizza, but here's their gimmick. We deliver all orders. You don't have the $20 minimum, that most pizza parlors have. They will deliver a $5 pizza and a Coke to you, no matter where you live, as long as you're within a certain radius of their place. That's their gimmick. And believe me, it's working extremely well. They are crushing their competition. Because let's face it, Friday night, pouring rain, you want to order a pizza, are you going to pack the screaming kids into the SUV, drive through the pouring rain, 25 minutes to the pizza parlor, the pizza's already cold by the time you get there, you wait in line, you pick it up, it's already soaking wet, you bring it home, you got to microwave the bloody thing before you can eat it. These people will deliver any pizza to you. Trust me, you'll pay a couple of bucks extra for that delivery service. And believe me, it's working very, very well for that pizza parlor. Another example, lawyers. Hey, go about competition? I got competition. There's hundreds of lawyers here in Southern Connecticut, and you got no shortage of lawyers in this part of the world, okay? And let me tell you something. Their LLCs and their corporations, they're pretty much the same as mine. I got to tell you that. I can't really look you straight in the face and say that I got better LLCs than those people do. I can't do that. I'd be lying to you, because we all use the same templates. There's only one way you can really put an LLC together under Connecticut law, and we all know how to do it, So what's my competitive advantage? What do you think? Why do people buy Cliff Ennico as opposed to somebody else? Well, partly it's pricing. I do flat fees, which a lot of attorneys don't do, and that's part of it. But also I think it's my personality. People aren't afraid of me. I'm not one of these pompous guys that looks down his nose at you and says, I charge $1,000 a heartbeat. I don't do that to people. I'm more human, I'm more friendly. Hold off, please, until we're done. I want to get through the 10. That could be my advantage too. It's just who I am. The fact that I'm willing to give these kind of talks and talk about something besides law. A lot of lawyers won't do that. They only want to talk about law and taxes. I don't do that. I want to talk about how to succeed. I'm going to teach you guys how to succeed. I work with 15,000 people. I should be able to tell you something about that. Okay? So your competitive advantage sometimes doesn't have anything to do with your product or service. It can be who you are. It can be your location. It can be the fact that you've got a better chef than somebody else does if you're a restaurant or a fast food place. It can be the fact that you're more conveniently located. We have a hardware store in Fairfield, a little mom and pop hardware store that's been around for 50 years. Home Depot moved in about a dozen or so years ago, but this hardware store is doing extremely well. And why is it doing extremely well? Because it's located right in the middle of where people live. Whereas the Home Depot is way down, by the railroad tracks down on Long Island Sound. Now don't get me wrong, if I'm looking to buy a ton of lumber, I will make the trip to Home Depot to save the 10 or 15 bucks on the ton of lumber. But if all I want is one light bulb, because one of my track lights burn out, I'm going to be damned if I'm going to go all the way to Home Depot, 25 minutes each way for one freaking light bulb just to save $2. I'm going to go to the local place and I'll pay the extra buck or the 50 cents or whatever it is. And this hardware store has done very, very well with that strategy. You always see people in there, and when they come out, they only got little bags, but lots of little bags. And lots of little bags add up. So they can do very well there. Okay. End of competition. Questions. And now we got to turn to people. Do you have the people on board that are going to make this business a success? Now, some of you are saying, well, yeah, you're looking at them. It's me, myself, and I. That is the partnership. Okay? Which is perfectly fine. But you cannot be a loner when you are in business. Okay? I'm just going to write down who should be on my management team. Okay. Now, to answer this question, I got to digress a little bit, but only for a second, I promise you. Before you can answer this question, you have to answer another question. The first question you have to ask here is, what are the essential functions of this business, and can I do them all? Those are really two questions, I guess, but it's a two-part question. What are the essential functions of this business, and can I do them all? Okay, you're going to find out when you're in business that there are only about a handful of things, 4, 5, 6 at the most, that must be done extremely well for the business to survive and grow. You don't have to do everything well. It's only a handful of things, maybe 4, 5, 6 things on average, that you have to do well in order to ensure that the business will survive and grow. And it varies from business to business. It's not the same for any two businesses. So for example, in my business, believe it or not, one of my essential activities, my essential functions, I got to get my bills out every month. Now you say to yourself, well, wait a minute. Yeah, every business kind of has to do that, but wait, why is that essential? It's essential because I bill by the hour. You asked me to review a lease for you. I review a lease for you. How much is it? How much time did I spend? You don't know. You need a bill from me to tell you how much time I spend so that you know how much to pay me, right? So if I don't send out my bills on time, you don't know how much to pay me, therefore you're not going to pay me, and I'm going to end up with a lot of people owing me a lot of money. So I got to get my bills out. The last day of every month in the morning, you cannot get a hold of me. I do not answer phones. I do not answer emails. What I'm doing is I'm doing my freaking bills. That's what I am doing. Because I know that if I don't get those out by the end of the month, I'm not going to get paid by the end of the following month. People are going to drag those out. If I'm late getting my bill out, then they're going to drag their heels getting the money in, getting the money back to me. So that's one of my essential activities. Every business has a core of maybe 4, 5, 6 essential things, and these are the things, ladies and gentlemen, that you must do yourself. You do not delegate these to anybody else, not to partners, maybe to partners, but not to employees, not to your spouse, not to a bookkeeper, not to a lawyer. You do those things yourself because they must be done extremely well, if not perfectly, and no one else is going to do them as well as you will do them. That's why you must do these activities yourself. So, going back to my basic question, what are the essential functions of this business? What are the things that must be done perfectly? Okay, I got my list, I know what the 5 things are. Can I do all of them myself? If the answer is yes, you do not need a partner. You do not need a partner. If you can do all the essential functions yourself, you do not need a partner. If you cannot do all the essential functions yourself, that's when you need a partner to do the things you cannot do. This is how you decide, by the way, whether you need partners or not. A lot of people go into partnerships and well, Joe and I are old buddies and we like each other and this is why we do this stuff. That's the worst reason to go into partnership with someone. The only reason to go into partnership with anybody is because you cannot do all the essential things yourself. You need help with some of them, and that's what this person is good at. Okay? I'll give you a classic example. Let's say you come up with a great idea for a business, okay, and you need $1 million in startup capital to get this business off the ground. How many of you here have $1 million in your checking account? I was just going to say, I didn't think I'd see too many takers here, all right? So that means that if you're going to get this business off the ground, you need a partner who has $1 million in his checking account and is willing to shell out some of that money to help you get your business off the ground. You need a financial partner. That's an example of what I mean by the essential functions. One of your essential functions is raising that $1 million to build whatever it is you're building. You don't have it, so you got to have a partner who does, or else the business is not going to get off the ground. Okay. Now, what about the non-essential activities? Okay, the essential activities of the business, those 4, 5, 6 things, must be done by you or your partners. Okay, what about the non-essential activities? Those are things you should never do yourself, or seldom if ever. The non-essential, just like you never delegate the essential activities, you should always delegate the non-essential activities. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they start businesses, they get so caught up doing non-essential things that they let the essential things slide. And that's when the business starts having problems and starts suffering. Once you've identified the essential activities, those are the things you sweat. Those are the things that you obsess about, that keep you awake at nights. But anything else, you delegate to other people, to your lawyer, your bookkeeper, employees, staff people. This is what you do. You delegate, even if they make a couple of mistakes every once in a while. It's always better and more cost-effective in the long run to delegate the non-essential activities, because what those things do, they can be time vampires sometimes, and they take you away from those 4 or 5 or 6 things that must be done perfectly for the business in order to survive. Okay, I can give you examples of that if we had more time. Okay? So that's it. So who should be on your management team? Answer, number 1, if you cannot do all the essential activities yourself, you have to get 1 or more partners, and you must have enough people around you. They don't have to be employees. They can be contractors, they can be professionals, whatever, but you have to have enough people on board who can handle the non-essential things. And I'll give you 5 examples. Okay? When you're thinking about the non-essential activities and who you should delegate to, there are 5 types of people who should be on your team. Okay, they won't live in the office with you, but you should definitely have them. Number 1, most importantly, a good accountant. Absolutely essential, especially for your first couple of years in business. Unless you yourself have an accounting background, you probably shouldn't be keeping your own books. It's better to have somebody else do it for you, because not only do they know how to do it and they'll set you up right, but they'll also, because they're not living with you every day, they'll see things that you won't see. Hey Cliff, I'm just out of curiosity. You're a lawyer, and I know lawyers do a lot of things with paper, but do you realize you're spending over $300 a month on paper clips? Really? Yeah, you're paying $300 worth of. I'm seeing all kinds of Office Depot and Home Depot bills, and forgive me, what are you doing? Well, I don't know. Hey Joe, you're the guy who buys all our supplies. Why are we buying $300 a month worth of paper clips? And by the way, why is your eBay store called Paper Clips R Us? Seriously, this is how you can find out if employees are stealing from you. This is one of the things. You won't see that because you're so busy with all the essential stuff, but your bookkeeper will say, wait a minute, this looks weird. You're a law office, and before they become too big. Disability insurance, especially if you're working for yourself. If you are a one-person business and you slip while skiing and you break your ankle, you may be out of commission for a couple of months. Disability coverage, I don't think, is a luxury for a small one-person business. I carry a lot of disability insurance, and a couple of times it saved my life. I've been injured for a while. I can't practice law for a month or 2 because both my hands are in a cast. I've been in that situation. Believe me, having disability coverage is a very good thing. Don't leave home without it. Number 4, a good mentor, someone who has walked the walk before, who has been in this business before, who can help you at least avoid some of the dumb mistakes that people make. Obviously, this is a pitch for SCORE. SCORE is an excellent place to look for these kinds of people. Just looking around the room here, we've got about 250 years here worth of experience, including myself in that. I got to believe, they may not understand all the nuances of what it is you're looking to do, but they've been around long enough that they can prevent you from making the dumbass mistakes that kill most people who start off in businesses. SCORE is an excellent place to look. Another great place to look, by the way, trade associations. Every trade show that I go to, there's always a few gray heads, people walking around, the aisles who know everybody and everything, who have a lot of contacts and who've been in the industry for a while. Get some of these people on your side. Take them out to lunch. A lot of experience. We live in one of the best areas in the country when it comes to finding talent. There's a lot of people right now out of work who've had a lot of experience in business right now. Seriously, if you're looking for a mentor, I would almost suggest call some of the outplacement centers. Believe me, they got a lot of people sitting around with 20, 30, 40 years of experience doing exactly what it is you want to get into, and they're probably looking for something to do to get out of the house every once in a while. We live in a great area to find talent because there's a lot of out-of-work talent floating around Fairfield County right now. Take advantage of that. You can benefit from that. And also you can help them too, which is also a really good thing. Last but not least, your spouse or significant other. Now, I am not saying that you should make your spouse your business partner. Okay, I could give a whole class on that one. Okay, but your spouse or significant other, your loved one, your companion, should know at least enough about your business that they can help you deal with the personal side of this. Here's a dirty little secret, ladies and gentlemen. When you start a business of your own, you are not going to be 5 years from now the same person you are today. This will change you. It's like having a baby. Those of you know, when you had your first baby, did it change your life? Sure it did, right? Well, this is just like that. You're going to be a different person 5 years from now. And you're going to need somebody to sort of help you manage that transition to whatever it is you are becoming. Now, here's a silly example of what I mean. Let's say, for example, that you are an avid golfer. Golf is the biggest thing for your life. Every Saturday you've had this golf foursome. You've been doing it now for the last 20 years with these 3 other people. These 3 people are like your best friends in life. Every Saturday you go golfing. One morning you wake up and you get a brilliant idea for a retail business. It's something it's a type of store, your town needs it, there's nobody else is doing it. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You will get filthy rich doing it. Everybody loves this idea. Your accountant loves it, your lawyer loves it, all the numbers are adding up. You got some cheap real estate too in a good part of town. All the numbers are pointing up, all the arrows are pointing up. This business is going to be a success. What's one problem though you're going to have? What's the busiest day in retail? Saturday. There goes your foursome. There goes possibly the game of golf. Now maybe these people can play golf, take time off in the middle of the week to join you, but they probably won't. You might be losing these 3 friends. Remember, these are 3 of the closest friends you have. But now that you no longer have your golf game to hold you together, you may be giving up these friendships. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you shouldn't do the business, to keep your golf foursome, but my point is your accountant, your lawyer, your insurance person, and your mentor won't pick up on that. Your spouse or significant other will. Well, what about this golf game? What about your golf foursome? Don't you realize you're going to have to give that up? Oh, wait a minute, didn't think of that. That's what I mean by managing the transition. Also, too, you're going to find yourself a different person 5 years from now. Make sure your spouse or significant other is on board. When I left working for a law firm to work out of my home, my wife and I took a little retreat. We took a 3 or 4 day retreat. We went to a place up in New Hampshire, and all we did was talk about how our life was going to be different. Up to that point, she was married to a guy who wore $1,000 suits, took the Metro North train into New York, and was working on deals that she read about in the Wall Street Journal every day. Now she's going to be married to a guy, who works in his bathrobe and pajamas, doesn't always shave every day, and is helping people buy liquor stores and gas stations. How does she feel about that? Really, you have to have these kind of conversations. People get wedded to a certain image of who you are, and when that image changes, their image of you may change as well. Do a reality check with your spouse or significant other and find out if they're willing to go along with you for the ride. They may not. They may say they do, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. Knock on wood, my spouse certainly went along with me for the ride, and I think she's very happy she did. Make sure the same thing happens to you. Okay. Number 8. How am I going to pay these people? How am I going to pay these people? Okay. Only one thing I'm going to tell you here. Don't give stock away to your employees unless they are truly people that are going to hang around for the long term. The only people who should get stock, and by stock I mean a percentage of your ownership, a percentage of your profit or loss. If you're a partnership, we call it a partnership. If you're an LLC, we call it a membership interest. If you're a corporation, we call it stock. Do not give people a percentage of your company if they're only going to be around for the short term. The only people who should get equity in your company, a piece of the action, are your partners, the people that are performing the essential functions of the business and who are going to be around for the long haul. A big mistake that many startup businesses make, they give too much of the company away early on to people who aren't going to hang around for the long term, so that when it comes time to bring on the really serious investors like the venture capitalists and the banks and those people, there's no more money to give, there's no more stock to give those people. They end up working as employees for the companies that they founded because they only have 2% of the stock left for themselves. That's a very dumb thing. Those of you who watched the movie The Producers, remember that, the Broadway show? You cannot give away more than 100% of your company. You can't do that, it's illegal. You can't do that. Yeah, that's what the producers are all about. The guy sells 10,000% of a Broadway show because he thinks it's going to flop, but then it becomes a success and he ends up getting clobbered, like Bernie Madoff. That's what that movie is all about. Right? You can't sell more than 100% of your company. If you give all stock away to your secretaries and people that do nice things for you, just keep in mind that every time you give away a percentage of your company, it's a percent that you yourself no longer have. This is a zero-sum game, folks, and you only got 100% of your company to give away. Make sure that that stock is going to the right people who are going to be around 5, 10, 15 years from now to help you get this business off the ground. It's my only lesson on compensation. I can give a whole class on that, obviously. Okay, question 9. Where am I going to get the money for this? Okay, folks, here I got to blow a lot of myths here. There are 2 places, and only 2, where money comes from for a startup business, for a business that's just getting off the ground. Once you get a little bit bigger, there's some other places you can look. But there are 2 places, and only 2, where you get money for a startup business. Here is your business. This is your business on drugs now. Remember that famous PSA? Okay. The first place that money comes from, it comes from your customers in the form of revenue. This is basically what people are paying for the products and services that you're offering. It comes from your customers. I go out, I sell a will for $500. I don't do wills, but let's say I sell an LLC for $500. I have $500 worth of revenue. Okay, your customers give you your income in the form of revenue. That's one place where money comes from for a startup business. The other place that money comes from for a startup business, it comes from the owners, that's you, in the form of capital. This is the money that you put into the business to make it run. From your credit cards, your savings, your 401k, if you can do that legally. I said credit cards, your third mortgage on your house or the home equity line that you took out to fund the business. This is where this other money comes from. For a startup business, the only 2 types of money are revenue from customers and capital. And there's an inverse relationship between these 2 things. Okay? Every month or every week, this business has to shell out money in the form of expenses. If you're a retail store, you've got rent to pay each month. If you've got employees, you've got payroll you got to meet every month. Every business has money, has expenses that have to be made on a monthly, if not a weekly basis. If the customers are not generating enough revenue to pay those bills, where's the money got to come from to meet the shortfall? It's got to come out of your pocket. You've got to keep the business on life support because those bills have to get paid every month. When customers are generating enough revenue that the bills can be paid on a monthly basis, we have a magical name for this. We call it break even, or the break even point. That's what break even means. Break even simply means that the business, whatever it is generating enough revenue from its customers that it can pay the bills each month without having to hit up the owners for loans or for capital. You see how this works? There's an inverse relationship. The longer it takes for you to achieve break even, the longer it takes for you to reach the point that your customers are paying all the bills on time, the harder it's going to be for these people to keep putting money into the organization. How many of you here would continue to up your credit cards for 3 years or more to keep a business on life support? How many of you would willingly do this? I'm not seeing too many hands, right? So what does that mean? It means when you're in business for yourself, one of your primary goals is to break even as soon as possible. Because once you break even, 2 magical things happen. You'll start, first of all, you will breathe a sigh of relief because you're no longer putting more of your hard-earned savings into the business to keep it on life support. But also, 2, you'll attract other owners and investors who will want to buy into this business because, as the Chinese say, success has 1,000 fathers, failure is an orphan. Okay? Nobody wants to invest in a successful business that's taking off. Nobody wants to invest in a business that's struggling and hasn't proven itself yet. I mean, this should be obvious. I'm not speaking anything that I think isn't obvious here, but it's something you have to think about. I mean, I work with investors, I work with venture capitalists, and they all tell me the same thing. Cliff, if a business is successful and it needs money to grow, we can find it, even in this environment, if the business is exciting enough. But please do not come to me and ask me to pay one of your clients' light bills, or one of your clients' or to fund one of your clients' payroll expenses, because I'm not doing that. If the business isn't surviving from its own revenues, what we call bootstrapping, I don't want to hear about it. Come back when you grow up. And you will actually have investors tell you that. They will actually say, come back if you're going. Do not go to an investor, an angel investor or somebody like that, and try to get him to invest in a business that hasn't proven itself yet by breaking even. One of your first challenges with any business is to break even and to do it as quickly as possible so that you can start attracting other investors to your business. Okay. Last but not least, so now you've gone through, and by the way, you've asked all these questions in order. You see, by the way, you don't really worry about where the money's going to come from until you know you're going to have customers. Do you see why that is now? Because the customers are the ones that are going to help you to get to the break-even point. If there are no customers, why are you even worried about where the money's going to come from? You don't have your answer. That's why the order of these questions is very important. Now, we're up to question number 10, which is, what are the risks involved in this business, and how am I going to deal with those? Okay? And there are, now, I'm going to now, this is the legal stuff. By the way, does it surprise you this is question 10? It's the very last question you asked. You'd be amazed how many people call me up where this is question number 1. You know, hey Cliff, I want to start a business LLC. Okay, what's the business? Don't know yet, but I know I need an LLC. Well, why do you need an LLC? Because I'm afraid of getting sued. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my house. Well, all right, but since you don't know what you're doing yet, no one's going to sue you. So why worry about this? Why don't you figure out what the business is going to be, maybe make a little money first, and then I'll be happy to form an LLC for you. I'm happy to take your money. But why are you doing this now? Wait till you have a business, then we'll figure out how to protect it. Right now you got nothing to protect. Right? But people do this all the time. They want to put this risk because they're so scared of getting sued. Okay. Now, here are the things you need to think about. Okay. Number 1, should you form an LLC or corporation? Okay. A lot of businesses, you don't have to, believe it or not. There are still, even though we're a very litigious society and people love to sue in this country, there are still lots of businesses that you can get away with without having anything at all. So let's say, for example, you're selling bobblehead dolls on eBay. Bobblehead dolls of baseball players or something like that. And let's say that somebody buys from you on eBay, you ship it, the thing arrives broken, the customer complains. Is there going to be a lawsuit over this? Are you going to get sued over a $10 bobblehead doll, especially if the buyer's in another state? Let me tell you, that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is he's going to complain, you're going to give him another one, or if you don't have another one, you'll give him his money back, or if you're really a jerk and an SOB, you'll blow him off and he'll post negative feedback on eBay's feedback forum telling the world what an idiot you are. That's what's going to happen. You're not going to get sued over a $10 bobblehead doll, all right? But now let's say you're selling used cars on eBay. And you sell a used car to someone, and he gets in the car, and the car breaks down on the way home. He crashes, and so he and his whole family are burned alive in the crash. Is there going to be a lawsuit over that? Oh yeah, you better believe that. So even on eBay and online, depending on what you're selling, each business has what we call a risk profile. And sometimes that risk profile is very low, like with the bobblehead dolls, or it's very high, as in the case of used cars. What somebody has to do, like your lawyer or your accountant, is to figure out what the risk profile of your business is. The higher your risk profile, the more likely it is that you're going to want to form an LLC or a corporation. But keep in mind what this does. The LLC or a corporation is not a panacea. All the LLC or corporation does, and don't get me wrong, it's a very good thing to do, it puts a wall up between your business assets and your personal assets. That's what the LLC or corporation does. When you form an LLC or corporation, you're putting a wall up, and what you're basically saying is, these assets over here are my business assets. If, God forbid, I do something bad, you can sue me, but you can only get these. The business assets are still at risk. What the LLC or corporation does, it protects your personal assets. My house, my jewelry, my cars, my personally autographed photograph of Elvis, my stamp collection, all of that is behind the LLC corporate wall. You can't get that, Mr. Plaintiff. That's all it does. Your business assets are still at risk, which is why you still need insurance for the business assets. That's all it's doing. It doesn't protect all your assets. It only puts a wall up between your business and your personal assets, saying that the personal assets are safe from attack. You still need liability insurance of some kind to protect your business assets, especially when you start having them. What most businesses do is something called commercial general liability insurance. Whenever you get liability insurance, always get at least $1 million, because you're going to find that when people sue, that's what they sue for. People don't sue for $50,000. They tend to sue for bigger numbers. So if you get insurance for your business assets, get at least $1 million. I'll close with this. How do you keep from getting sued? Let's face it, I'm a lawyer. I think I'm qualified to answer this question, if nothing else. Here's how you protect yourself from getting sued. First of all, the thing you have to recognize is that there's no way to totally prevent yourself from being sued. Years ago, before I was a lawyer, before I went to law school, I was a newspaper reporter. I was a crime reporter for a daily newspaper in Yonkers, New York, my hometown. And every year, I had to interview this grizzled old police sergeant. He was like 80 years old on the Yonkers police force, on, usually in the early springtime, on how to keep your home from being burglarized, right? And this last year, it was his last year on the force. He was retiring. So when I went to do the story, he said, you know what, Cliff? Hey, it's my last year. I'm out of here in a month. Let me tell your readers the truth for a change. You really can't prevent your home from being burglarized. There's no foolproof way to keep your home from being burglarized. The burglars today have incredible tools. They got better stuff than we have. And if they are really motivated to get into your house, trust me, they'll find a way to do it. So if you're worried about being burglarized, there's really no perfect way to protect yourself against being burglarized. However, there's one thing you can do. You can make yourself a very unattractive target. That's what you can do, because burglars are just like anybody else. They want the easy jobs. They want the low-hanging fruit. If they see your house is Fort Knox and you got all kinds of protections and stuff around there, they're going to have to be very highly motivated to break through all that to get to whatever it is that they want to steal. They're not going to do that for a couple of TV sets and a stereo. That's not going to happen. All right? So, by all means, what a burglar's biggest enemy is time. When a burglar is in your house, he knows that every minute he's in your house, his chances of getting caught doubles. So all you got to do is slow the burglar down, and he probably won't want to hit your house in the first place because you're too heavy a risk. Anything you can do to slow a burglar down. So put 3 locks on all your doors. Put bars on your windows. Get a vicious barking dog. Cut away all the shrubs around your house so the guy's got nowhere to hide. Do all this stuff, but realize that none of this is foolproof. If you've got the original Mona Lisa in your family room, a burglar will be highly motivated to break through all that stuff and get through. But if all you got is regular household stuff, most burglars will say, the hell with that, I'm not going to tackle that house, that's too risky. I'll hit the house across the street, where they leave the doors and windows open during the day when nobody's home. Everybody with me on this? It's the same with lawsuits. You cannot protect, there is no foolproof way to protect yourself from getting sued. If someone has lots of money and is crazy and does nothing with their spare time but sue people, chances, and those are the people you deal with, chances are you're going to get sued at some point, when you run a business. But you can't prevent yourself from being sued, but you can make yourself an awfully unattractive target so that somebody would truly have to be crazy to sue you. And the 4 things you got to do. Number 1, by all means, form an LLC or corporation. Make sure you use it. Okay? If I form Cliff Ennico, Inc., I am no longer Cliff Ennico. Whenever I go out and do business, I'm Cliff Ennico, Inc. And make sure that you stick that in people's faces. It's very, very important that you do that. If people don't know you have a corporation or LLC, the LLC won't protect you. You've got to make sure that they see that. And there's a number of things you do there. Form an LLC or corporation. Get as much insurance as you can afford. If anybody sues you, you want them going after your insurance policy. You don't want them going after your house. Get as much insurance as you can afford. Number 3, consider transferring assets out of your name into family members' names. If your wife, if your spouse is not going to be participating in the business, by all means, deed your house over to her. Do it now. Do it before you begin. That's the best time to do it. Don't wait until after you're sued. Then it's too late. You can't do it then. But do it now. Just keep in mind that if you do this, you are making a legal transfer to your spouse. Okay? You're putting a lot of stress on this relationship. If you are not 100% sure of your relationship with your spouse, do not do this, because you are making a legal transfer into her name. So if you ever get divorced at some point, you will not only be without a spouse, you will be homeless. Okay? I will see you on I-95 with a sign saying, we'll do whatever for food. I don't want to see any of my clients in that position, all right? So be very careful about this. If you're going to do it, but do it at the very beginning, before you do business with anybody. And make sure, have a lawyer do it, actually file a deed, record a deed. It's called a quit claim deed with the town land records. Make sure you do this officially so that anybody who looks to see who owns the house will see her name, they won't see yours. And then make sure that she doesn't do anything in the business. Make sure that she doesn't participate in the business anyway, because otherwise they'll try to argue that you're partners, and that brings the house back into the game. You don't want that. Then last but not least, and this may sound silly, but it's probably the best defense you will ever have against lawsuits. Do not do business with crazy people. Do not do creases. Really, this sounds so silly, but seriously, every time a client of mine gets sued by somebody, almost the very first words out of their mouth is, I knew it. I knew this guy was going to be a problem. I knew he was going to be trouble from the moment I took him on. It's amazing how good your gut is. Even though you've never been in business before, you can spot crazy people. They usually are very, very obvious. You know who's going to be there. One of the best defenses you could ever have, if you really says that someone is a walking lawsuit, do not do business with them. Trust me, there is plenty of other business out there. I do this. Forgive me. Please don't hate me. But every once in a while, I get a call from somebody who I just know has the word malpractice lawsuit stamped on their forehead. Okay? I don't want that person in my client base. I don't care how much money they have. If this person is a potential lawsuit, if my gut, if my antenna are telling me that this is a bad person, I don't want that person in my system. Here's what I do with those people. I don't hang up on them. Here's what I do. I say, Mr. So-and-so, this is really great. I'd love to work with you. This is a very interesting matter. You seem like an awfully nice guy. The problem is I'm in the middle of writing my next book right now, and that manuscript is due in February. I'm probably not going to be taking on a lot of new clients between now and then. If you can wait that long, which of course nobody can do, call me back then. I'll see what I can do for you. But in the meantime, if you can't wait that long, please call my good friend, Attorney Joe Blow. He's here in town. I've known him for years. I know you'll have a very good experience with Attorney Joe Blow. And who am I sending you to, do you think? My worst enemy. The guy I hate worse than anybody else in the local bar association. I want him to have you for a client. I want him to have the malpractice suit, not you. Please don't hate me for that. That's just human nature. So those are the 10 steps to starting a successful business. Do you see how the order is very important? You don't really worry too much about the legal and the tax and the financial stuff until you know the customers are there and you know you can deal with the competition and you know you got the people. Until you've done those three things, the money, the legal, the tax, just put them on hold for a bit. You'll get to them eventually, but just put them on hold. Focus instead on the things that are important. If you don't really know where your customers are coming from, don't worry about whether you should be an LLC or a corporation. An attorney can spend 15, 20 minutes with you and tell you what you should do. You don't have to do that right now. I gave you a wonderful little outline, by the way, if you're really interested in this. It's called Demystifying the Business Organization. You can also download it free from my website, cliffennico.com, which is my legal website. Seriously, it's 7 pages long. Sit down tonight after you do your exercise, the 10 different types of people. Sit down tonight with that strong VSOP brandy. Read this cover to cover, and I guarantee you, you will come away knowing as much as most attorneys know about the difference between corporations and LLCs and subchapter S corporations. I've really packed a lot of information into this 7 pages. Okay? So with that, I have finished my 10 steps to starting a small business. Let me open the floor for questions. But first of all, thank you very much. You guys have been a terrific audience.
Thank you.
Questions, people? Anybody? Go ahead.
Yes, when you said about transferring, personal assets to a spouse or family member, if that family member is, let's say, an employee of the business, that doesn't work.
Yeah, okay. That doesn't work. The person has to be someone who's not involved in the business at all. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're trying to do, but what's going to happen is the plaintiff's attorney, when they sue, is going to try to show that the person was really your partner and not an employee. And they might be able to play that game. So people do this. They hire their spouse, as W-2. But if she's really working in the business 24/7 with you, and you're sharing responsibilities equally, there's no way a court's going to buy that. They're going to say that you're really a partnership, and that you were trying to hide assets. So do it with your mom, unless of course you got to watch out for this though. If you're going to transfer assets to a parent, make sure that you change the will so that when the parent dies, you get the asset back. Because otherwise, what happens is when they die, it goes, do you have brothers and sisters? What's going to happen is if she dies, all the brothers and sisters get the assets equally. That's what happens. At least in Connecticut, that's what happens. So if you do that, make sure that your mom changes the will so that when she dies, that asset comes back to you. That will work. But just make sure you do it. Because this happens. Don't transfer an asset to somebody who's 94 years old. You got a little risk there. Okay. Although God knows, I know people that are like 102, 103. It's amazing. We all know the story about the person who, married the 82-year-old person, because they thought that they dropped it and they ended up living to like 5 or something like that. It's kind of like the same. It's kind of like the same thing. Okay. Any other questions? Sir?
You said don't worry about the structure of the organization until you're actually operating or running the business. But by then you've got your stationery printed, you've got maybe leases done,
Yeah.
you've got marketing done.
Yeah, I guess,
You
the
have an
question is, I
organization.
mean, how soon is early enough? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we should wait 5 years. You know, when you're sure, when you know in your gut that the business is real, that's when you should form the corporation or LLC. That's really what I was saying here. Not after you've been in business for a while, but when you know the business is a real thing, it's not just some